My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 68 years old, a grandmother, and until a few months ago, I believed I had lived a simple, faithful marriage for nearly 40 years. But that night in the hospital, lying bruised and broken after my fall, I realized the cruelest wound wasn't on my body, it was in my heart. I remember the hum of the machines, the smell of antiseptic, and Richard's hand on mine. He leaned close and whispered, "Don't worry, darling, I'll take care of everything." His voice trembled with rehearsed sympathy. Then he left the room, saying he needed to take a call. The nurse walked in moments later and placed a phone on my bedside table. "Your husband asked me to keep this safe for you," she said. I nodded, thinking it was mine. But when I touched the screen, I realized it wasn't. It was his. And curiosity, mixed with something darker, pushed me to unlock it. What I saw made my heart slam against my chest. There were messages to a woman named S. Her words dripped with intimacy. "Once she's out of the way, it's ours." His reply was colder than any knife. "The accident was almost perfect. Soon the company will be mine." My hands shook so violently, I nearly dropped the phone. The accident. My accident. Was Richard behind it? My own husband, the man who had tucked me in, shared meals with me, built a life with me, plotting with another woman to steal my brother's $7 million tech company that I had only just inherited? I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Suddenly, the hospital walls closed in. My chest felt heavy, but not from the pain of my broken ribs, from betrayal I couldn't yet process. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. My accident wasn't the worst thing that had happened to me that night. To understand why those words crushed me so deeply, you have to know where I came from. I wasn't born into wealth. I was the daughter of a steelworker and a schoolteacher in Pittsburgh. My life was built on hard work and scraped pennies. I married Richard when I was just 27, believing he was the kind of man who wanted simple joys, family dinners, steady paychecks, and a quiet retirement. For decades, that's exactly what I thought we had. We weren't rich, but we were stable. We raised 2 children. We saved for retirement. I cooked Sunday dinners that filled the house with laughter. Never once did I imagine that money could poison the very man who swore to protect me. Then came my brother's passing. Samuel was a genius, a man who started a tech company in his garage and turned it into a $7 million empire. He never married, never had kids. To my shock, his will left everything, not to charity, not to business partners, but to me. At first, I didn't know what to do. I was almost 70, retired, and suddenly holding the keys to a company filled with young coders and bright minds. Richard wrapped his arms around me, kissing my forehead. "You can't handle that kind of stress, Evelyn. Let me help you. Let me take the weight off your shoulders." His words sounded loving then, but soon I noticed the changes. He started wearing expensive suits for no reason. He spent late nights out claiming business dinners. He had a new phone he never let out of his sight. I brushed it off, until the night I overheard him laughing softly in the kitchen, whispering words that didn't sound like they were meant for me. That was the first crack in the picture-perfect marriage I thought I had. But the next thing I saw made me realize those cracks were deep fractures. The fights started small. Richard questioned my decisions at the company. "Evelyn, you don't know the tech world. Let me handle this." His tone was sharp, dismissive. My daughter, Claire, told me, "Mom, maybe he's right. You're too old to run a business like this." My son, Matthew, disagreed. "She can do it. Don't let anyone push you around." I felt torn between my children, but what hurt most was Richard's persistence. He brought home stacks of papers, urging me to sign them. "Just routine stuff," he said with a smile. His hands trembled as he slid the documents toward me. I didn't sign. Something inside me whispered caution. That whisper grew louder the night I walked past his study and heard him on the phone. His voice was low, but not low enough. Once she signs, it's mine. She won't see it coming. I froze in the hallway, my heart thudding like a drum.
Who was he talking to?
Was it about me? About the company? I backed away quietly, pretending I hadn't heard, but the seed of suspicion was firmly planted. The next morning, I confronted him gently. "Richard, are you hiding something from me?" He smiled, too wide, too fake. "You're imagining things, Evelyn. You're tired. That accident rattled you." His words stung, but his eyes betrayed him. He wasn't calm. He was nervous. I began watching him closely after that. Every smile, every late-night call, every slip of the tongue felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. But the picture it formed was darker than anything I could have imagined. And then one night, I remembered something that made my blood run cold. The image of his shadow standing at the top of the stairs just before I fell. That night haunts me. The sound of my own scream, the crack of bone against wood, the sudden silence as I lay sprawled at the bottom of the staircase. At first, I believed it was an accident. My slippers had no grip. I told myself it was my fault. But in the hospital, after reading those texts, I replayed the fall again and again. I remembered the faint creak of the floorboard above me. I remembered pausing, thinking Richard had gone to bed already. And then, just before the darkness swallowed me, I saw a shadow at the top of the stairs. Could it have been him? Did Richard push me? Or worse, was he waiting for me to fall? When I asked him later, his face remained calm, almost rehearsed. "You slipped. That's all. Stop torturing yourself." But his eyes darted away, and in that moment, I felt the sting of betrayal stronger than the ache in my broken ribs. What kind of man plots against his wife? What kind of husband looks at his partner not as a lover, but as an obstacle? These questions twisted in my chest, pulling me deeper into suspicion. Still, I wanted to believe I was wrong. I wanted to believe Richard wasn't capable of that kind of evil. But then, during one of my therapy sessions, I overheard him on the phone again, pacing the hallway outside my room. His words sliced me open. "She's fragile now. Perfect timing." I gripped the arms of my wheelchair so hard my knuckles went white. Perfect timing for what? For him to take over? For him to erase me? My doubts became undeniable when I discovered money missing. Money I never touched, money that vanished from our account overnight. When my granddaughter Lily visited me at the hospital, her presence was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She sat on the edge of my bed, holding my hand. "Grandma, you don't look like yourself. What's wrong?" I wanted to tell her everything, but fear kept my lips sealed. That night, after she left, I logged into our joint bank account. My heart skipped when I saw it, $200,000 withdrawn in a single transaction. I never authorized it, and Richard never mentioned it. I confronted him the next morning. "Where did the money go?" I asked. He frowned, annoyed more than guilty. "Investments, Evelyn. Don't concern yourself with things you don't understand." His dismissiveness boiled my blood. I turned away, but the thought festered. What kind of investments drained that much money without my knowledge? And why so secretive? Later that day, I confided in Lily. She was young, sharp, and loyal. "Grandma, maybe he's hiding more than you think," she whispered. Her words both comforted and terrified me. The betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was the realization that the man I had trusted for 40 years was building a life without me, a life on my inheritance, my brother's legacy. And then, as if fate wanted to confirm my worst fears, I stumbled upon a folder Richard had hidden away, one labeled divorce papers, to be filed. That night, I sat up in my hospital bed staring at that hidden folder, the words divorce papers, to be filed stamped across it in black. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. There was my name, our assets, our house, everything we built together, and Richard had already planned how to take it all. My chest tightened, but not from fear, from anger. He wasn't just planning to betray me. He was planning to erase me. When my lawyer friend Marcia came to visit, I showed her what I had found. She frowned deeply. "Evelyn, listen to me carefully. He may try to prove you're not capable of handling your finances. If he can show mental or physical incompetence, he can take everything." Her words made my stomach drop. Richard had been smiling at me sweetly, feeding me soup, patting my hand, while secretly preparing to declare me unfit. I decided to play along. The next time Richard leaned over me with that fake tenderness, I smiled back. "I trust you, Richard," I said softly. His eyes flickered with satisfaction. But inside, I was burning, memorizing every detail, every lie, every slip of the tongue. The mask finally cracked one evening when I pretended to drift off while he sat by my bed. I kept my eyes half closed. He muttered under his breath, "Soon, all of this will be mine." And that's when I knew my husband wasn't just betraying me. He was circling me like a vulture. I thought I had seen the worst of him, but then a memory hit me from years ago, his own words that suddenly sounded like a prophecy. When Richard and I first met, I was a widow. I was 35, raising 2 small children, and carrying grief like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. He swept in like a savior, handsome, ambitious, promising stability. He told me he admired my strength, said he wanted to build a life with me. I believed him because I wanted to believe. But now, in the hospital, those memories replayed differently. I remembered the nights he would count every dollar, obsessing over money. I remembered him once saying at a dinner party, half joking but deadly serious, "Love doesn't pay the bills. Money does." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But tonight, those words pierced me like glass. Had I been blind all these years? Had I chosen comfort over truth? My heart ached thinking about the red flags I ignored, the controlling glances, the way he always steered conversations back to finances, his envy whenever anyone else succeeded. And yet I stayed. I stayed because I feared being alone. I stayed because I thought a flawed man was better than no man at all. But then, Lily uncovered something that ripped the last shred of hope I had for him to pieces. Lily had always been my closest ally. One afternoon, she came rushing into my hospital room, her eyes wide with fury. She slid her phone across the blanket. "Grandma, you need to see this." I hesitated, then looked. It was Richard, my husband, holding hands with a much younger woman at a luxury hotel restaurant. His smile was brighter than I'd seen in years. Their champagne glasses clinked as if they were celebrating. My throat tightened. My first instinct was to cry, but instead, I felt a cold rage rise inside me. "How long have you known?" I whispered. "Long enough," Lily said, tears in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you, but he's not hiding it anymore." I stared at the photos until my vision blurred. Betrayal had a face now. It wasn't just whispers or numbers on a bank account. It was flesh and blood, sitting across from my husband in candlelight. The next morning, I discovered Richard had already gone one step further. He had tried to steal the company out from under me. When I showed up at the company headquarters with my cane and bruises still fresh, I was met with wary stares. Whispers followed me down the hall. Finally, the company lawyer pulled me aside and handed me a thick envelope. "Mrs. Carter, I think you should see this," he said cautiously. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a filing, an attempt to replace me as CEO of my own brother's company. And the name on the line declaring intent? Richard Carter. I felt dizzy. He wasn't just betraying me as a wife. He was betraying me as a guardian of my brother's legacy. Every employee in that building was counting on me, and Richard had slithered in behind my back, trying to take what wasn't his. I forced myself to stand taller. "Thank you for showing me this," I told the lawyer. My voice didn't shake, even though my knees wanted to buckle. That night, I learned it wasn't only the company Richard had targeted. He had already put our own home on the line without telling me. When I returned home that evening, something felt off. Bills were piled high on the counter, and there was a notice sticking out of the stack. I opened it with trembling hands. My breath caught as I read the words. Mortgage overdue. Final notice. I staggered to the chair, my legs weak. How could this be? Our home had been paid off years ago. Richard had taken out a massive mortgage in my absence. Without my signature. Without my knowledge. He was gambling everything, our house, our future, on his greed. When he came in later, whistling as if life was sweet, I confronted him. "Why did you remortgage our home?" My voice cracked, but my eyes were steel. He paused, then shrugged. "Investments, Evelyn. You wouldn't understand. Don't meddle." His arrogance burned hotter than fire. He didn't even try to hide it anymore. To him, I was a pawn. Disposable. And that's when I realized the only way to protect myself and my family's legacy was to set a trap he'd never see coming. I knew if I wanted to survive Richard's betrayal, I couldn't just defend myself. I had to outsmart him. So one evening, I told him what he wanted to hear. I sat in the living room, my cane beside me, my voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "Richard," I whispered, "maybe you're right. Maybe the company is too much for me. Perhaps I should transfer it to you." His eyes lit up like a man tasting victory. He leaned closer, his voice low and greedy. "You won't regret it, Evelyn. Once it's mine, you can rest." But what he didn't know was that my phone was recording every word. I captured his hunger, his arrogance, his betrayal. He thought he had broken me, but in truth, I was preparing to strike. That night, I played the recording back over and over, each word sharpening my resolve. For years, I had been the quiet wife, the supportive partner, the woman who let things slide. But not anymore. This time, I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my dignity, my brother's legacy, and my family's future. The very next day, Richard showed me his true hand, papers already filed in court that would blindside me in the most humiliating way. The envelope came in the mail that morning. Heavy, official, stamped with the county seal. Inside were divorce papers already filed under his name. My stomach turned as I scanned the cold language, the demands for assets, the accusations of incompetence. He had painted me as a fragile old woman, unfit to manage her life, unfit to manage the company. That evening, when I confronted him, I brought Marcia with me. My lawyer. My friend. Richard's face went pale the moment she stepped into the room. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. His own voice filled the air. "Once it's mine, she'll never see it coming." Richard lunged forward, trying to grab it, but Marcia stood between us. His mask dropped completely. "You're old, Evelyn."
Weak.
"You can't run a company. You can't even run your own house." His words cut deep, but I stood tall. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. The court hearings were grueling. Richard's lawyer painted me as a senile grandmother, barely able to think straight. He held up my hospital records, emphasizing my fall, my injuries, even my age, as proof I couldn't manage millions. I sat quietly, hands folded, until it was Lily's turn to speak. My granddaughter looked the judge in the eye and told the truth. She showed the photos of Richard with his mistress. She spoke about his gambling, his arrogance, his cruelty. My heart swelled with both pride and pain. No child should have to expose such darkness in their family. Then came the moment that silenced the room. Marcia requested a full financial audit of Richard's accounts. His lawyer blanched, stammering, but the judge approved it. I watched Richard's jaw tighten, the veins in his neck bulging. The audit revealed everything: hidden accounts, secret transfers, debts tied to his mistress, and frauds so blatant even the judge shook his head. Richard hadn't just been stealing from me. He had been stealing from a company, from the employees who trusted us, from everyone. The judge ruled in my favor. I kept the company, the house, and full control of my finances. Richard, red-faced and trembling, stormed out of the courtroom, spitting the words, "This isn't over, Evelyn. You'll regret crossing me." But I wasn't shaken anymore. I had already seen the worst of him. I had already survived the fall, both literal and emotional. Now I was standing again, stronger than before. It didn't take long. Months later, Richard was arrested for financial fraud tied to his mistress's failed business. His name was splashed across the news, not as a respected man, but as a criminal. I watched from my porch as the world saw the truth I had known too well. For me, life took a different turn. I sold part of the company and used the money to create a foundation, helping single mothers, widows, and women who had been told they were too old, too weak, or too broken to stand on their own. My brother's legacy became something larger than money. It became hope. On my birthday, Lily sat beside me as we cut the cake. "Grandma," she said softly, "you're stronger than anyone I know." Tears filled my eyes, but they were tears of peace, not pain. I realized then that betrayal hadn't destroyed me. It had refined me. Richard took my trust, but in losing him, I found myself. And I found a strength I didn't know was still in me.